Discovery and Deception. High Commander Vextal stood motionless before the Grand Council's circular chamber, his crystalline eyes fixed on the holographic display of a seemingly unremarkable solar system. 47 members of the Galactic Confederation's ruling body watched in silence as he manipulated the controls, zooming in on the third planet from its yellow star. Honorable Council, what you're seeing is Observation Post 147's last transmission before going dark, Vextal announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. This system, previously designated as uninhabited, holds something unexpected. The hologram shifted, showing a massive orbital structure near the planet's largest satellite. What appeared to be primitive chemical rockets surrounded it, but something about their arrangement bothered the experienced commander. 3 days ago, our stealth observation post detected unusual energy signatures from this facility. Before our analysts could determine their nature, this happened. The hologram flickered, showing the observation post's final moments. The burst of energy, unlike anything in Confederation records, simply erased the cloaked station from existence. Counselor Zarath, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with concern, leaned forward. Impossible. Our stealth technology is undetectable. These primitives shouldn't even have noticed the post's presence, let alone possessed weapons capable of destroying it. That's what concerns me, Vextal replied, adjusting the display to show more details of the planet's surface. We've been monitoring this world for decades, classifying them as a pre-spacefaring civilization. Their visible technology suggested they were centuries away from true space travel. But this, he gestured at the recording of the post's destruction. This suggests we've been deceived. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Deception was foreign to most Confederation species, whose societies were built on absolute transparency. The concept that a primitive race could deliberately mislead them was almost inconceivable. Show them the rest, ordered Grand Counselor Xin, her ancient voice cutting through the chaos. Vextal nodded, displaying new images captured by probe droids sent after the observation post's destruction. They revealed massive underground complexes, hidden shipyards beneath oceanic trenches, and what appeared to be energy weapons disguised as primitive satellite arrays. They knew we were watching, Vextal continued. Every primitive rocket launch, every clumsy space station assembly. It was theater. Behind this facade, they've built something far more advanced. We've detected quantum computing signatures, gravitational manipulation devices, and energy weapons that shouldn't be possible at their development stage. How? Demanded Counselor Zarath. How could they have developed these technologies without our knowledge? Because, honored Counselor, they did something we never considered possible. Vextal's voice carried a mix of admiration and fear. They evolved differently. While every known species developed technology in predictable patterns, these humans took random leaps, combining theories that shouldn't work together, creating hybrid technologies that defy our understanding. The hologram showed one final image, a massive fleet of ships, hidden in the shadow of their gas giant, designs unlike anything the Confederation had encountered. They weren't the sleek, standardized vessels of an advanced civilization, nor the crude rockets of primitives. They were something else entirely, ugly, practical, and bristling with weapons that made even veteran council members uncomfortable. We have two options, Vextal concluded. We can approach them openly, admitting we've discovered their deception and risk immediate conflict, or we can retreat, reevaluate our assumptions, and prepare for a type of civilization we've never encountered before. Grand Counselor Xin rose slowly from her seat, her ancient eyes fixed on the image of Earth's hidden fleet. You're not telling us everything, Commander. What is your assessment of their capabilities? Vextal hesitated, then spoke with careful precision. The humans haven't just been preparing defenses, honored Council. They've been preparing for war. Not a war of conquest or expansion, but a war of survival. Every weapon, every ship, every hidden facility is designed with one purpose: to ensure that if anyone threatens their world, the cost will be too high to bear. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For the first time in its 100,000-year history, the Confederation faced a species that had anticipated their arrival and prepared accordingly. The age-old protocols for handling primitive worlds suddenly seemed dangerously inadequate. Perhaps, Sin mused, breaking the silence, it's time we learned a new way of thinking about civilization itself. She turned to address the full council. The question isn't whether these humans are primitive or advanced. The question is, what kind of species prepares so thoroughly for a war they weren't certain would come? The answer, though none would speak it aloud, hung heavy in the chamber. A species that would prove either the most valuable ally or the most dangerous enemy the Confederation had ever encountered. The silent preparation. Director Sarah Chen stood in the heart of Project Lighthouse, a facility buried 2 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing real-time data from thousands of sensors scattered throughout the solar system, each one carefully disguised as defunct satellites, space debris, or natural phenomena. They've retreated beyond Neptune's orbit, reported Dr. James Rodriguez, her chief of surveillance. The Confederation's primary fleet has gathered there. 17 capital ships, over 40 support vessels. Sarah nodded, her attention fixed on a particular display showing the quantum signature analysis of the alien fleet. For 30 years, she'd helped orchestrate humanity's greatest deception, and now the moment of truth approached. "Launch a mosquito," she ordered. The room's other occupants, the best minds humanity had produced, tensed slightly. Mosquitoes were their most advanced stealth drones, incorporating reversed engineered Confederation technology with human innovations. Each one cost more than an aircraft carrier, but their intelligence was priceless. "Status of the Aegis platforms," she asked while the drone made its way to the alien fleet. Colonel Maya Patel, her military liaison, brought up a new display. All 300 platforms are operational and hidden. The Confederation's scans pass right through them, just as the simulations predicted. They still think our defensive capabilities are limited to the decoy missile platforms we've let them see. A small smile crossed Sarah's face. Those primitive missile platforms had been the first part of their deception, carefully designed to be just advanced enough to make the Confederation believe they'd found Earth's true defensive capabilities, but primitive enough to be dismissed as a serious threat. "Mosquito has reached the fleet," announced Rodriguez. "Beginning quantum scan." The assembled leaders watched as data poured in. The Confederation's ships were impressive, the product of millennia of development, but they'd evolved in a straight line, each advancement building predictably on the last. Human engineers had taken a different approach, mixing and matching theoretical frameworks that the Confederation would consider incompatible. "They're preparing for a standard first contact protocol," Sarah observed, watching the alien fleet's formation. "Exactly as the intercepted transmission suggested. They'll send a diplomatic vessel first, backed by overwhelming military force. When we reject their generous offer of submission, they'll attempt to demonstrate their superiority." "All according to plan." Maya nodded. "The orbital defense grid is ready. Operation Looking Glass can commence on your order." Sarah turned to address the room directly. "For 3 generations, we've prepared for this moment. When we first detected their observation posts, our grandparents made the hardest decision in human history: to hide our true progress, to let the Confederation think us primitive while we studied their every move." She gestured to the displays showing Earth's hidden strengths. The quantum shield network disguised as natural magnetic fields, the gravity lance platforms masked as asteroid clusters, the fleet of hybrid tech warships waiting in subspace pockets throughout the solar system. "We learned everything about them," she continued. "Their technologies, their tactics, their philosophies. Most importantly, we learned their greatest weakness: they think in straight lines. Technological progress, military doctrine, even their concept of civilization itself, all following predictable patterns." A new alert flashed across the displays. The Confederation's diplomatic vessel had begun its approach. "Begin broadcast infiltration." Sarah ordered. Let's make sure they receive our response on every channel, in their own language. Humanity's message must be clear. We see you, we know you, and we are not prey. Throughout the solar system, hidden transmitters activated, cutting through the Confederation's most secure frequencies. The message was simple, designed to shatter their assumptions. We've been expecting you. The diplomatic vessel halted its approach immediately. Sarah could almost imagine the confusion on their bridge. The Confederation had never encountered a species that announced itself this way. It wasn't in any of their protocols. They're scanning with everything they have, Rodriguez reported. Shall we maintain the deception? Sarah shook her head. No, it's time. Let them see. Across the solar system, carefully maintained illusions began to fade. The primitive orbital stations flickered and revealed their true forms. Advanced defense platforms incorporating technologies the Confederation thought impossible. The flimsy satellites transformed into weapon systems that made their observers' most advanced sensors scream warnings. They're retreating, Maya announced, a note of satisfaction in her voice. Their diplomatic vessel is turning around. They'll be back, Sarah stated firmly, with everything they have. The Confederation doesn't adapt easily to surprises, which makes their response predictable. They'll follow their standard protocols for dealing with an unexpected threat, massive, overwhelming force. She turned to face her team, people who had dedicated their lives to preparing for this moment. Humanity has hidden long enough. When they return, we'll show them why we spent 3 generations preparing. Not just to survive first contact, but to reshape the very nature of galactic civilization. And if they don't learn from the demonstration? Maya asked. Sarah's expression hardened. Then they'll learn why every weapon we've built, every strategy we've developed, has been focused on a single principle, making any attack on Earth too costly to contemplate. We didn't prepare for a fair fight. We prepared to win. As if in response to her words, the quantum sensors detected a massive hyperspace disturbance. The Confederation's main fleet was moving. The real test of humanity's preparation was about to begin. Send the final warning, Sarah ordered. In their language, on all frequencies. Your protocols are known. Your tactics are anticipated. Retreat or face the consequences of underestimating humanity. The message went out, echoing across space. Whether the Confederation heeded the warning or not, humanity was ready. 3 generations of preparation, of hiding their true capabilities, had led to this moment. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had worked so hard to appear harmless while preparing for war. First strike. Admiral Marcus Santos watched the Confederation fleet emerge from hyperspace, their ships arranged in the textbook Spear of Dominance formation. 300 vessels strong, it was the largest fleet they'd ever deployed against a single world. The massive ships filled the space between Mars and Jupiter, their gleaming hulls reflecting distant sunlight. Right on schedule, he murmured, standing on the bridge of the ESS Prometheus, hidden in a pocket of warped space near Europa, and exactly where we predicted. His XO, Commander Helen Park, monitored the quantum sensor feeds. They're deploying according to Standard Conquest Protocol 7, just like the intercepted archives showed. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. The Confederation's rigid adherence to established protocols, the very thing that had made them so successful against conventional opponents, was about to become their greatest weakness. All ships confirm ready, Helen reported. Quantum shields at full power. Gravity lance batteries charged. The mosquito swarm is in position. Marcus opened a channel to all Earth forces. Remember your training. Everything we've prepared for happens now. Execute Operation Checkmate. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden forces sprang into action. The first phase was subtle. Quantum field manipulators, disguised as natural spatial anomalies, began altering the underlying fabric of space around the Confederation fleet. Their ship's sensors, designed to detect normal space phenomena, registered nothing unusual. Sir, Helen called out, they're broadcasting the standard ultimatum. The The Confederation's message boomed through all frequencies. Primitive world, you have demonstrated hostile intent against the Galactic Confederation. Submit now and receive mercy. Resist and face annihilation. Send our response, Marcus ordered, the one we prepared. Across every Confederation channel, in their own language, humanity's message played. Your protocols are obsolete. Your tactics are known. Your technology is understood. Last warning. Retreat. The Confederation's response came in the form of weapons fire. Their leading vessels launched a barrage of plasma torpedoes, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. But they were firing at defensive positions that didn't exist, at ships that weren't there, at an enemy they didn't understand. Phase 2, Marcus commanded. The quantum field manipulators reached critical density. Suddenly, the Confederation's sophisticated targeting systems began reporting impossible readings. Their perfect formation started to break apart as ships received conflicting spatial data. They're trying to compensate, Helen reported, watching the enemy fleet's confusion with professional satisfaction. Switching to backup targeting systems. Now, release the mosquitoes. Across the solar system, thousands of tiny drones emerged from hiding. Each one carried a fraction of the firepower of a Confederation capital ship, but they moved in ways that defy the aliens' understanding of physics. The drones darted through the gaps in the enemy's shields, gaps created by humanity's deep understanding of Confederation technology. Their shields are failing, Helen announced. The hybrid quantum/EMP warheads are working exactly as designed. The Confederation fleet's response was predictable. They began shifting to Formation Delta, a defensive arrangement designed to maximize shield coverage. It would have been the perfect counter to a conventional attack. Launch gravity lances, Marcus ordered. Hidden platforms across the asteroid belt activated. The weapons they fired weren't traditional energy beams or projectiles. Instead, they created localized distortions in gravitational fields, turning space itself into a weapon. The Confederation's shields, designed to deflect energy and matter, were useless against an attack that warped the very space they occupied. Multiple enemy capital ships reporting critical failures, Helen reported. Their formations are breaking apart. Marcus opened a channel to all Earth forces. Begin Phase 3. Show them what humanity can really do. The ESS Prometheus and its sister ships finally revealed themselves, emerging from their spatial pockets. They were ugly by Confederation standards. Function over form, every surface bristling with weapons that combined human innovation with reversed engineered alien tech. All ships, execute attack pattern Omega, Marcus commanded. Remember your training. They'll try to regroup using Standard Protocol 9. Be ready. The human fleet moved with practiced precision, exploiting weaknesses that the Confederation didn't even know they had. Each ship carried weapons specifically designed to counter alien defensive systems, using principles that the Confederation had never considered combining. The battle that followed was brief but decisive. The Confederation fleet, for the first time in its history, found itself facing an enemy that had spent generations preparing specifically to fight them. Every counterattack they launched was anticipated. Every defensive formation they adopted was already compromised. Enemy fleet is in full retreat, Helen reported. 87 ships destroyed, 142 disabled. The rest are attempting emergency hyperspace jumps. Marcus nodded grimly. Let them go. They need to report what happened here. He turned to his tactical display, watching the remnants of the once mighty fleet flee. Send the final message. Throughout the devastated battlefield, every disabled Confederation ship received the same transmission. This was a demonstration. There will not be another warning. The cost of the next attack will be total. As rescue ships began retrieving survivors from the disabled Confederation vessels, Marcus reflected on the significance of what had just happened. Humanity had just demonstrated not just its military capability, but its fundamental difference from every other species the Confederation had encountered. Send word to Director Chen, he ordered. Phase 1 is complete. The galaxy now knows that humanity isn't just another primitive species to be conquered. We've spent generations preparing for this moment, and we're ready for whatever comes next. The battle was over, but Marcus knew this was just the beginning. The Confederation would have to completely reevaluate its understanding of civilization itself. Humanity had just proved that technological advancement didn't have to follow their predetermined paths, that innovation didn't have to proceed in a straight line. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity had just ensured it would have a say in that change. The hidden arsenal. Grand Counselor Xin stood before the emergency session of the Confederation Council, her ancient eyes scanning the faces of the assembled representatives. The chamber, usually a model of order and decorum, was in chaos. The news of their fleet's devastating defeat had shattered millennia of certainty. The humans didn't just defeat our fleet, Admiral Vextol reported, his voice hollow. They dismantled it. Every tactic, every technology we employed. They had specific counters prepared. They knew our protocols better than some of our own commanders. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed detailed analysis of the battle. Ships being torn apart by weapons that shouldn't exist, defensive formations crumbling against attacks that defied conventional physics, and most disturbing of all, evidence that the humans had somehow predicted and prepared for every standard Confederation response. Impossible, shouted Counselor Zorath. How could primitives possess such technology, such knowledge? Because, Sin spoke quietly, silencing the chamber, they are not primitives. We were not watching them develop. We were watching a performance, a carefully crafted deception designed to hide their true capabilities. A new hologram appeared, showing the secret shipyards humanity had revealed after the battle. Massive facilities that had been hidden beneath ocean trenches, inside asteroids, and within pocket dimensions that Confederation sensors couldn't detect. The ships they produced were unlike anything in known space, hybrid designs that combined technologies in ways that violated established engineering principles. They took our most basic assumptions about technological development and proved them wrong. Vextol continued. While we advanced in linear progression, they explored parallel paths, combining theories we thought incompatible. Their quantum shields don't just block energy. They redirect it. Their gravity weapons don't just distort space. They rewrite its local laws. The display shifted to show captured footage from the battle. Tiny human drones moving through supposedly impenetrable shields, weapons that turned the Confederation's own defensive systems against them, and ships appearing from spatial anomalies that shouldn't have been stable. And now, Shin announced, they have sent us this. A new hologram materialized. A complete technical database of everything humanity had used in the battle. Ship designs, weapon schematics, theoretical frameworks that made senior scientists shake their heads in disbelief. It wasn't just a demonstration of power, it was a message. This is what we've shown you. Consider what we haven't. They're offering an alliance. Chin continued, her voice carrying across the stunned chamber. Not as subjects, but as equals. Their terms are simple: recognition of their independence, exchange of scientific knowledge, and mutual defense agreements. You can't be serious. Zorath exploded. We cannot negotiate with a species that just defeated our strongest fleet using technology we barely understand. Vextol interrupted. A species that spent generations preparing for this moment, while we arrogantly assumed they were primitive. The chamber erupted in argument, but fell silent as a new transmission cut through their secured channels. On every screen, in perfect Confederation standard, appeared the face of Director Sarah Chen. Honored Council, she began, her tone respectful but firm. What you've seen is merely a fraction of humanity's capabilities. We chose to reveal these technologies as a demonstration of good faith. But make no mistake, we have spent 3 generations preparing for this moment. Every weapon we've shown you has dozens of variants. Every tactic we employed has hundreds of alternatives. She paused, letting her words sink in. We don't want war. We never did. Everything we built, Every deception we maintained was to ensure that when we finally met, it would be as equals, not as conqueror and conquered. The hologram expanded, showing new images, human ships already deploying throughout the solar system, defense platforms activating in configurations that made tactical analysts pale, and weapons that made the previous battle's arsenal look primitive. The choice is yours, Sarah continued. But know this, the humanity you thought you were watching, the primitive species you planned to conquer, never existed. We are not your subjects, and we will never be your slaves. We can be your greatest allies, or your worst nightmare. The next move is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Sin looked around at her fellow counselors, seeing the same realization on every face. The Confederation hadn't just failed to conquer Earth. They had encountered something unprecedented in their history, a species that had systematically prepared to prove themselves unconquerable. We have always assumed, Sin spoke into the silence, that civilization progresses along predictable paths. That technological advancement follows set patterns. The humans have proved us wrong. They have shown us that there are other ways to advance, other paths to power. The question now is, are we wise enough to learn from them? The council chamber remained quiet as the implications sank in. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted, not through conquest or subjugation, but through the careful, methodical preparation of a species that had refused to follow the expected path. Humanity had emerged not just as a military power, but as a force that would fundamentally change how the Confederation viewed the very nature of civilization itself. Empire's Reckoning. 5 years after the Battle of Sol, the Great Hall of Harmony on Neutral Station, Nexus 1 hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from Earth sat alongside Confederation delegates, their presence a testament to how much the galaxy had changed. Director Sarah Chen, now Earth's ambassador to the Confederation, stood before the assembled dignitaries. Behind her, a holographic display showed the transformation taking place throughout known space. Joint Human Confederation research stations, hybrid ships incorporating technologies from both civilizations, and new defensive networks protecting previously vulnerable worlds. 5 years ago, she began, our civilization stood on the brink of war. Today, we stand together at the dawn of a new era. The audience included many who had once advocated for Earth's conquest. Among them sat Grand Counselor Xin, who had become one of humanity's strongest supporters within the Confederation. The human paradigm, as you've come to call it, was never about military superiority. Sarah continued, it was about proving that progress doesn't have to follow predetermined paths, that innovation thrives when we question our most basic assumptions. The display shifted to show the latest breakthrough, a joint project that combined Confederation energy manipulation with human quantum theory, creating sustainable artificial habitats that could support any known species. Admiral Marcus Santos, now commander of the combined fleet, stood next to a Confederation warrior who had fought against him in the original battle. Together, they had reorganized the galaxy's defensive forces, combining Confederation discipline with human adaptability. Our deception was never meant to mislead, Sarah explained, addressing the lingering doubts some still held. It was a necessity born of understanding that true cooperation could only come from a position of equality. We hid our progress not out of fear, but to ensure that when we finally met, it would be as peers, not as conqueror and conquered. The holographic display showed the fruits of this new partnership. Technologies that neither civilization could have developed alone, defensive systems that made war increasingly obsolete, and exploration vessels pushing the boundaries of known space. The greatest threat to progress, she continued, is the assumption that there is only one path forward. The Confederation achieved remarkable things by following a linear progression of advancement. Humanity took a different approach, exploring parallel paths, combining seemingly incompatible theories, embracing contradiction and paradox. Sin rose to join her at the podium, a symbolic gesture that would have been unthinkable years ago. The humans taught us something we had forgotten in our millennia of existence, the ancient counselor added. They showed us that true strength lies not in the power to conquer, but in the wisdom to adapt. The display showed the newest generation of ships, elegant combinations of Confederation efficiency and human innovation. They weren't just weapons or tools. They were physical representations of what two fundamentally different approaches to civilization could achieve together. But perhaps most importantly, Sarah concluded, we've proven that the galaxy is large enough for different paths to progress. The Confederation's methodical advancement and humanity's experimental approach aren't mutually exclusive. They're complementary. Together, we're not just stronger. We're capable of achievements neither of us could have imagined alone. As if to emphasize her point, the station's quantum communications array activated, displaying a live feed from the edge of known space. A joint human Confederation expedition had just made first contact with a new civilization, one that would benefit from the lessons both species had learned. The protocols for this contact are new, Sarah explained, watching the peaceful exchange unfold. Written together, combining Confederation experience with human insight. No assumptions of superiority, no predetermined paths of development. Just open dialogue between equals. The gathering watched as history repeated itself, differently this time. The new species wasn't being judged by its technological level or military capability. Instead, they were being invited to join a galactic community that had learned to value diversity in advancement. 5 years ago, we showed you why humanity couldn't be conquered, Sarah said, addressing the assembled delegates. Today, we're showing you why that was never the point. The real victory wasn't in proving our strength. It was in proving that there's always another way forward. As the ceremony concluded, the station's observation deck offered a view of Earth and Confederation ships moving in perfect formation. Different designs, different philosophies, united in purpose. They were more than just vessels. They were symbols of a fundamental truth that humanity had forced the galaxy to recognize. That progress doesn't have to follow a single path, that strength comes in many forms, and that the greatest achievements come not from conquest, but from cooperation between equals. The galaxy had changed, not through war or dominance, but through the careful preparation and wisdom of a species that had refused to accept limitations. Humanity had emerged not just as a military power, but as a catalyst for a new way of thinking about civilization itself. As the assembled leaders dispersed to their various worlds and stations, they carried with them a new understanding. The future belonged not to those who could impose their will on others, but to those who could adapt, innovate, and find new paths forward. Humanity's greatest victory hadn't been in defeating the Confederation's fleet. It had been in showing the galaxy a different way to advance.